すみません。地下鉄はどこから乗れる？
何？
So I'm not even joking when I say Japanese is hard. How hard, you ask? It's ranked as a super hard language by the United States Foreign Services Institute, which apparently makes it one of the hardest languages to learn for native English speakers. Bruh. But before you throw in the towel, in this video I'd like to share with you how I faced this challenge.
じゃあ今回の動画のテーマはどうやって俺は日本語を学びましたのか。見ての通り日本語の教師じゃないし、日本語は完璧できない。だからこれは俺のアドバイスだけ。Think of me as just like a helpful friend.
So this is how I went from to being able to have conversations with natives and unlocking a whole new world with the language, all without really formally studying. I did it fully self-paced, self-taught, basically free, and it didn't matter where I was. I could use this method from the couch at home, on a walk, while commuting, and what's more, it was only later that I found that this lazy method I stumbled upon was actually really grounded in linguistic theory as well.
So first I'm going to dive into some of the theory behind these language learning methods, and then my own personal lazy learning methods, and last, probably most important of all of the key resources I used that really helped accelerate my language learning journey.
But before we jump in, a quick word from our sponsor. この番組はバンダイとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りしました。So I know some of you thought I meant listening to one of those binaural beats, learn Japanese while you sleep videos, and just click off right now if that's you, because that doesn't work. Being able to speak Japanese or any language for that matter still takes effort, but I'm happy to inform you that you don't have to do the traditional studying that you're used to. You know, like vocab lists, endless cramming for exams. You see, there's a linguist by the name of Stephen Krashen, and he has a couple hypotheses in his linguistic theory on language learning. In brief, the ones we'll focus on are that communication in a language develops in two ways: through language acquisition and language learning, with acquisition being subconscious and learning being the explicit studying you're used to in class. And he also puts forth that the best way for learners to acquire language is through input, something he calls comprehensible input. There's plenty of amazing videos out there on the subject, and there's a pretty amazing video I'll link in the description down below where Jeff Brown, a language teacher, details his whole process of learning Egyptian Arabic with this method specifically. The reason I bring it up though is that when I first started, I didn't even realize my learning methods were actually grounded in linguistic theory with my own little twist. So that being said, let's hop into my learning methods.
So based on your goals, you'll want to learn language for any number of reasons. You know, for you, reading might be very big, but for me, initially with Japanese, I thought the media was really cool.
You're a weeb, aren't you?
I liked the way the language sounded,
Weeb.
and the culture looked interesting to me as well. So my real goal was just to be able to consume the media without subtitles and be able to converse with native speakers. So what did I do?
You must have watched a lot of anime, surely.
I watched a lot of TV and listened to different songs, and it was a nice study break from all the actual studying I had to do, like at school. So basically, my first method was taking in a ton of input. At the beginning, when first taking in input in your target language, the language may sound like this.
貴様、本当の名は何という？ジュゲムジュゲム五行のすり切れカイジャリ水魚の水魚松雲来松風来松クーネルところに住むところやぶら工事のブラ工事パイポパイポパイポの修輪岩修輪岩のグーリンダイグーリンダイのポンポコピーポンポコナーの超救命の超
But after time, paired with images and subtitles in your target language, you'll start to pick up words and phrases without even trying. Because of the repeated context, the words will match the actions on the screen, and over time, the amazing pattern recognition system that is the human brain will be able to lock in the different patterns, especially if you're also doing this consciously, not just unconsciously, because you'll be able to get the benefits of the unconscious pattern recognition, but also if you're actually watching and observing, once things are repeated, you're like, oh, I recognize that. You're going to pick up a ton. And a show that was perfect for me, on top of the other things I was learning, was a show called Terrace House. And it was perfect because it showed the characters doing everyday relatable things, using words that would be useful for me to learn if I wanted to know everyday vocabulary. And without even trying, I was able to pick up so many new phrases like "kyo wa atsuyo ne" or "onaka suita," because these everyday scenarios were being repeated over and over and over again without the show being boring. And there was also a commentating crew that gave cultural insight into the goings-on in the show, in the house, And 彼らのおかげで日本語でちょっと空気読める人になったなと思う。So I was able to get both the vocabulary and phrases from the show and also a bit of cultural context, which I feel is very important when learning a new language. I watched 4 seasons of the show on Netflix with English subtitles because I just wanted it to be low pressure, just something fun. And it wasn't hard because there was a whole lot of cliffhangers, so it kept the show interesting. So initially, I'd recommend when watching something, watch it with subtitles in your own language. And then eventually, once you get to a point once you can start reading, you can take out those subtitles, switch it to the target language's subtitles, and then no subtitles at all. I just want to focus purely on listening. You'll get to a point where you start hearing words in every sentence that you understand and be able to infer the meaning of the sentence because of the words that you understand. And because of all the input that you're taking in, you're gonna eventually get to a point where you even dream in the language, and that's one of the coolest things. You're like, whoa, did that really just happen? But that leads me to my second method of learning, which might sound crazy.
Talking to myself a lot. You gotta be in your head having a full dialogue. When I learn languages, I'm narrating my thoughts like all the time. Like now I'm entering the car and I'm trying to think of how I would say that word in Japanese. And if I didn't know how, I'd look it up and be attentive if it popped up in any of the shows I was watching. I experienced this weird experience where sometimes if someone said a word, I would know what it means, but when it came time for me to produce it myself, I couldn't think of the word. The way I would remember words in those cases is that I'd also associate it with a crazy image in my head. For example, the Japanese word for car is kuruma. So to remember it, I pictured Kuruma from Naruto getting in a car. The more outrageous the image, the harder it'll be to forget the word. I would also find myself copying a video or a song because I'd 1, want to know what they were saying, and 2, I liked the way it sounded. And this helped me work on my accent. This, I would come to find out, is actually called shadowing. So, for example, it's basically like this.
なんて言うんだろう。わびさびというか。
なんて言うんだろう。わびさびというか。
わびさびってのは。
わびさびってのは。
人に対する思いやりとか。
人に対する思いやりとか。So it's kind of like this, repeating after the speaker at first, and then speaking it with them. というんだろう。わびさびというか。わびさびってのは人に対する思いやりとか。
そういったものってのは。
It's kind of like that.
So these were kind of the 2 main methods for me. That input overload and that self-rebounding with shadowing, talking to myself. Really helped me acquire the language fast after I had a small base. And I mean small, just some sentences and some basic phrases that I also picked up from some of my favorite resources that I'll be linking next. So at the beginning, when you know absolutely nothing, in my opinion, you need a base. That'll make that vibe education much easier later on. Traditional language learning methods are still useful, I think, and I do use them at the beginning of first learning a language just to get a small base.
So there's a ton of amazing playlists on YouTube like George Tremblay's Japanese from Zero, or even Duolingo, which, contrary to the thumbnail, I'm not a Duolingo hater. I think it gives you a good base and a little structure at the very start in the language. And that base makes the acquisition process so much easier, in my opinion, faster later on. I hear the Genki textbooks are good resources as well, but I've never used them before, so give them a go if you'd like a structured textbook. Chrome extensions such as Language Reactor, which works with sites such as YouTube and Netflix, were key for me. They allow you to see each word and look it up if need be, which makes shadowing so much easier when there's a scene or a song you want to recreate. There exist similar sites like Animelon that also do the same thing. For listening practice, I enjoyed listening to the Konnichiwa podcast, which had dialogue both in English and in Japanese in a fluid conversation. Bumping some tunes and some personal karaoke will help improve your accent very fast as well. If reading's one of your goals, as it's recently become for myself, instead of sitting and trying to memorize every kanji, which if that's your thing, a spaced repetition system like Anki or Wanikani is good, I hear. I've been trying to acquire them through reading and learning new vocabulary as it comes up. I've been using graded readers such as Satori Reader, Really Fire, but not completely free, and Watanak, which is free, which have stories and text in varying levels. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize how much you learn of a language when you're reading in it. You learn new ways of expressing your thoughts, and you naturally pick up the grammar points too. For the times I explicitly wanted to look into certain grammar points and do more of that intentional learning, I would check into the Tae Kim's grammar guide or watch a Miku Real Japanese or Kaname Naito video. One of my favorite resources was Hello Talk, which is an app that allows you to do a language exchange with folks learning your language. And through that app, I was able to meet one of my brothers and go on adventures across the world together. There's also meetups for all sorts of languages in cities across the world, both online and in person, so you can head to those too. Other interesting folks I stumbled across on the internet were Katsumoto and Matt vs. Japan, that had really all-encompassing immersion systems, basically all Japanese all the time. But all of that input helped them acquire the language to an amazing degree. Don't worry, I'll link all of these in the description box below.
So yeah, that's my advice for you guys on how to teach yourself Japanese, self-paced, at home, basically for free. And really, this extends for any language. And if you'd like to see me give it a go, learning another language with a lot of the methods I just shared with you, let me know down in the comments. And just enjoy the journey and have fun with it, because in the end, you're gonna be just fine. Kondo wa kondo, ima wa ima. Till next time, guys.